Good evening. I call to order this meeting of the Gladstone City Council for Tuesday, August 13th, 2024. It's 6:30 p.m. The City of Gladstone is abiding by guidelines set forth in House Bill 2560, which requires the governing body of the public body, to the extent reasonably possible, to make all meetings accessible remotely through technological means and provide opportunity for members of the general public to remotely submit oral and written testimony during meetings to the extent in-person oral and written testimony is allowed. Therefore, this meeting will be open to the public both in person and virtually using the Zoom platform. The Zoom platform instructions are on the agenda for the meeting. If members of the public would like to comment on an agenda item, either virtually or in person, they were to have emailed their comments or request to speak to the city recorder prior to noon today. Individuals attending in person may submit a speaker card to the city recorder prior to the beginning of the meeting. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. City Council will also have Gladstone City event announcements during the meeting and business from the audience at the end of the meeting. The instructions for requesting to speak are the same. Tammy, will you call the roll, please?
Councillor Huckabee.
Present.
Councillor Alexander.
Yes.
Councillor Blau.
Present.
Councillor Cook.
Present.
Councillor Roberts.
Present.
Councillor Garlington.
Present.
Mayor Milch.
Present. Please stand for the flag salute. Ready? Begin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Administrator Betts, are there any additions to the minutes or to the agenda for tonight?
I have no changes. Thank you.
Okay. We have a long consent agenda, which will take us through 10 items, except that I'm going to pull one. Approval of our minutes, approval of June bank balances, budget report, June check register, legal costs for the month of June, department head monthly reports for the month of July, approval of replacement of a Dodge Durango police vehicle, approval of a liquor license application for a change of ownership of Stanley's Corner, consider approving an amended joint values and outcomes for the 2025 state legislative transportation package by the communities of Clackamas County, and consider appointing Andrew Rathbun to be on the Traffic Safety Advisory Board. I would like to request that we pull item 1, the minutes, just to make a minor correction to the minutes. Are there any other counselors who would request to pull an item?
I'd like to pull item 7.
All right, Councillor Garlington is requesting we pull item 7. All right. And I can never remember, when we pull an item, do we consider that first and then go back to the rest, or we consider the rest and then go back to the ones we pulled?
I believe you do the consent agenda as it is, and then go back and address the others.
All right. So the consent agenda with the absence of item 1 and item 7, would anyone like to approve, to move its adoption?
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, moved by Councillor Huckabee, seconded by Councillor Cook. Any discussion? Tammy, call the roll, please.
Councillor Garlington.
Yes.
Councillor Roberts.
Yes.
Councillor Cook.
Yes.
Councillor Blau.
Yes.
Councillor Alexander.
Yes.
Councillor Huckabee.
Yes.
Mayor Milch.
Yes. The consent agenda is approved with the exception of the 2 items we pulled. Regarding the minutes of the July 9th meeting, on page 1-5, when I was talking at the end, the first sentence says, Mayor Milch reported on the C4 retreat where discussions were held on transportation and housing and discussion around the tax on, it says high-end residences. Actually, I checked back, the words I used were high-income residents. That's an income tax that supports the supportive housing services, not a an excise tax on housing. So it's just a correction of those words. So high-end residences should instead read high-income residents.
We can make that change.
All right,
I had
and
a question on the minutes as well.
yes, okay,
On 1-4, sorry, it starts with Counselor Garlington, and then on 1-5, it lists Counselor Garlington again. And it's very possible Counselor Garlington spoke twice. But I'm not sure if it was just a repeat entry.
trying to see if there's anybody who got left out.
No, I believe that she spoke twice.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay,
You know what? Sorry, I recognize this. So this is actually, the second Garlington is actually Cook. So I was speaking in support of Counselor Garlington's former statements. So where it says Counselor Garlington shared concerns around library hours, that should read Counselor Cook. I was chiming in support of Counselor Garlington's previous statements.
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you. We will make that that correction.
Yeah, we may have gotten into a sort of a discussion mode at that point with a couple people on it. Okay. With those corrections, I will move that we adopt the minutes of our June meeting, or July meeting, excuse me. All right, it's moved by Mayor Milch and seconded by Councilor Garlington to approve the amended meeting minutes or corrected minutes of July 9th, 2024. Tammy, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Roberts,
Yes.
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor Blaug,
Yes.
Counselor Alexander,
Yes.
Counselor Huckabee,
Yes.
Counselor Garlington,
Yes.
Mayor Milch.
Yes, the minutes as corrected are approved. Let's turn to item 7. This was a request to replace a vehicle for our police force. So staff, do you want to make any kind of well, let me just ask Councilor Garlington if you have some clarifying questions or how you'd want to proceed.
Just two questions
Okay.
that I was asked and I didn't know the answer to. Number one, how many vehicles does the police department have? And do you know how many of them are cars and how many of them are trucks?
All right, we
I
don't
do
have a
not
member of
have
the
any
staff.
information for you tonight on what our vehicle fleet entails. I was not prepared for that, so I apologize.
No. I didn't know either, or I would have sent an email earlier. So I would like to move that we approve number 7 and I'll find that information out later.
Okay, I think Councilor Roberts, you mentioned you had some knowledge of this. Oh, I thought you said we had you knew of a certain number of a certain type that you thought we had, but not the whole fleet number, right?
Correct. I was just talking with Counselor Alexander about some of the cars we have out there.
Okay,
I know
all right.
nothing more.
all right. Okay, but you're still in favor of going ahead and doing
I
that? You
am.
just want to know
And I
kind of,
will go about that information a different way.
okay.
I will
and-
second that.
All right, it's been moved by Councilor Garlington, seconded by Councilor Roberts to approve item 7, the purchase of a new vehicle for the police department. If citizens who are watching have not seen, we have a scoring system by which we evaluate older vehicles in our fleet to see whether it's appropriate time to replace them. It's a good system that's been in place for a long time. It's very useful for us. And as I mentioned to someone else before a meeting, I saw in minutes a past meeting of several years ago when we had a police vehicle that had a similar number of miles on it, was beginning to add up the cost for maintenance of that vehicle and makes it a good time to replace. So, okay, it's been moved and seconded. Let's go ahead and call the roll.
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor Roberts,
Yes.
Counselor Garlington,
Yes.
Counselor Huckabee,
Yes.
Counselor Alexander,
Yes.
Counselor Blaug,
Yes.
Mayor Milch.
Yes. The purchase of the replacement vehicle purchase is approved. All right. Administrator Betts, is there any correspondence to come before us?
I have nothing, thank you.
Okay. The next, normally at this point on our agenda, we would have a report from Clackamas Fire District. There is a printed report, including an updated page, because some of the statistical information was not available. Administrator Betts, do you want to share anything about the fire report or their presence or absence tonight?
No, I just wanted to make sure that you had the updated report with the data that is included in there. And also there's a copy of their quarterly newsletter called The Siren of information in there. We do have a meeting with Clackamas Fire in a couple of weeks. That would be Counselor Garlington, Counselor Alexander, and myself meeting with 2 of their board members and Fire Chief Brown and Assistant Fire Chief Stewart. We'll report back after that meeting, and they will be present at the September City Council meeting.
Very good. Thank you. Well, I commend those reports to you. Be sure you read them and stay up to date as you do with the reports from our local department heads as well. I understand we have no one requested to speak for Gladstone City announcements tonight. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So we move on to our regular agenda. Item 13 is a report update on our 23-24 City Council goals. Administrator Betts.
Thank you, Mayor. As you will see in your packet, we have provided you our mid-year update on the City Council adopted goals. We have Goal 1, Economic Development, Goal 2, Infrastructure, Goal 3, Communications and Engagement, and Goal 4, Parks. The items in your packet that are in the red font are the most recent updates to the goals. Management is doing a great job, and I think we've made progress on a lot of things this year. To close out 2024, we will give you a year-end report, and then the new City Council will be adopting goals in 2025, 2026. So this is for informational purposes only. If you have any questions that I'm happy to try and answer for you.
And just to clarify, we do our budget on a fiscal year basis, which starts in July and ends in June, but our goals are on a calendar year basis. So 23-24 is the kind of the 2-year period over which we are accomplishing these goals. I, for one, will say I really appreciate the format of this report. The red ink to show the updates adds to this, to the completeness of this, but makes it a much easier read when we're looking for what's been accomplished most recently. Are there comments or questions from members of the council? Councilor Cook.
Just a quick comment. All this stuff kind of happens. We're aware of all of these projects as they happen, but seeing them all laid out here, it's really astonishing how quickly the city's been able to move to further us towards these goals. So just an appreciation to city staff for making this happen. This is good stuff. Big moves being made.
We get this in little bites in the city administrator's weekly report, which is emailed to all the council plus many, many active people in the city. But then to see, as Councilor Cook says, to see it all summarized in one place really underscores the importance of the work and the completeness of the work. Other comments or questions? Councilor Garlington.
Sorry, I just have a couple of questions. On page 13.6, it says that we submitted a capital funding request to our state representative's office that we didn't get. Is there a chance to reapply for that?
You're talking about
I'm sorry, the capital funding request.
that was
Second
back
paragraph.
in last year that we submitted that.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that once our representatives get back into legislation, they will be asking similar requests of cities. I don't have that timeline yet, though, for when those will come in.
Okay. And then I was going to ask about on page 1313, the ad hoc tree committee. Will those people, I don't want to use the word morph, move into a commission of sorts, do you feel like? I thought the information they gave us at that work session was really good, and the people that were present were just full of information. So I would encourage those on that board, if at all possible, to apply to be on a board, should we have that. I guess it wasn't a question, there's a statement. 1321, the Gladstone Police Department intends to hold a one-day event. Do you know what the overall information package on that event would be for? Yes,
Well, they're trying to do a strategic plan
okay,
and they need community input for that. And so the chief is trying to target a date where he can set that this fall so that they could gather information from citizens in the community about their strategic planning, just specifically for the police department.
okay.
So to clarify, this would be a community engagement event, not so much, this is not similar to the academy that we
Correct.
tried to do. This is
Right.
not an educational thing. It's to solicit information from the community.
I think one of the things it's hard to do is to get all of the citizens all in one place at one time. So if they had time, I think it would be a something worth thinking about, maybe doing an afternoon at the community center with that group that tends to be at the community center, and then maybe another evening type thing where the working folk of Gladstone could be able to join in on something like that, and try to reach as many people as possible at that kind, if that's the kind of information that they're looking for from people to come back. I think that it can't be a one-time thing. I don't think that fits everybody in Gladstone really well, but that's my 2 cents on that. And that's all I had on everything that was here that I had highlighted. So thank you for all the information, though. It was well worth the read.
All right. Other comments, questions, clarification? All right. I don't know that we have to take any action on this, but we appreciate, as we said, having this information, and it enables us to go back and refresh our memory. Gee, what did we do about that? So it's a good report to have. Thank you. All right. Item, let me see, are we already to the end?
Yeah.
All right, boy, we're really going to have a quick meeting tonight. Item 14 is discussion of the possible implementation of a proclamation process. We had a request from a city councilor to consider to put the topic on our agenda for discussion of whether the city could consider doing proclamations of one kind or another. I did some research to find out, you know, what we had done here in Gladstone in the past. And also in order to kind of facilitate having a discussion tonight, just before the agenda went to press, I remembered that I had seen an email from the mayor of another city in Oregon who shared with other mayors through a thread that the mayors across the state have, some guidelines that city used in helping people understand, you know, the circumstances for getting a proclamation by the mayor in that case, because it was done by the mayor rather than the council. And so I took that, I copied, pasted it, changed some of any reference to that city, I changed to Gladstone. It had an effective date. I put today's date. I did not mean this to be a resolution or anything that we were adopting, but I just thought that this particular one covered a number of issues that I thought might come up in our discussion, and that's why it's in your agenda. I found since then, other cities have some similar process, a form, an online form for requesting. I will say that, just to put this in context, this came up during a discussion from mayors asking about whether they should approve a certain resolution that had come to them by email that apparently went to a lot of mayors across the state at the same time. And the concern of this mayor was, he said he was getting 10 or 12 requests for proclamations each month. And once they put some guidelines, a process in place, the number of requests reduced substantially. So in some sense, it was to reduce his own workload. In another sense, it was to provide some clarity for the public. But I just wanted you to understand the context in which this was shared with mayors. And now I will open it up. Councilor Cook, I'll start with you. You're the one who had requested we put this on the agenda, and maybe you could kind of refresh our memory about your thoughts about when and why this might be appropriate to have in our city.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So this actually came up for me. I was a visitor at the Milwaukee City Council meeting in June. And while I was there, City Council had 2 proclamations that started out their meeting. It took about 20 minutes for 2 different proclamations. And honestly, I came away really inspired by the connections that I saw. You know, before the meeting, we had the mayor, city council of Milwaukee were shaking hands with residents who had come forward and were there for the proclamations, making connections, learning about why they were there and about the issues that were facing that person. Frankly, it got a lot of people in the doors at City Hall. So there were people there to, you know, witness the proclamation and celebrate the proclamation who had never been in City Hall before. And, you know, looking at the giant crowds that busted the door down to come to our city council meeting tonight. For those not without visibility, there are currently 2 residents in the building. You know, it seemed like a wonderful way to build connections and community. And doing some more research, it looks like we are an outlier in the area. Most surrounding communities have a proclamation process. And especially coming after our discussion of council goals. One of our goals is communications and community engagement. It seems like a really simple, low lift way to show citizens of Gladstone, residents of Gladstone, that the city council, that the government is engaged in serving them well and listening to their needs and responding to their needs. Kind of talking about this in the absence of any examples, I did some quick digging to see what would a proclamation look like. Some of our neighboring communities, some examples of what a proclamation request might look like. Our neighbors have had proclamations for Public Service Recognition Week, National Law Enforcement Week, Mental Health Awareness Month, Earth Day, Child Abuse Prevention, Memorial Day, Women's History Month, and more. So the hope is that by putting a process in place around proclamations where we can kind of avoid the pitfalls that you talked about, Mayor, but still show our community that we are listening to them, that we are engaging with them, that we are aware of their needs and connected with them. This seems like a low lift and easy way to do that. So that's my pitch.
All right, I appreciate that. Particularly your observation that it brought people in who might not otherwise have attended a meeting, but it deepened a connection between the governing body and the community.
Yeah, there for the proclamation, it was a Juneteenth proclamation was one of the proclamations. And so there was a family there who their family had been involved in organizing Juneteenth in Milwaukee. And so they had an 11-year-old boy who was in the family who was able to, you know, stand and read the proclamation with the mayor. And so that 11-year-old left with this experience, this positive experience with city government, this understanding that the city's there for them, that they know the avenue to connect with their city's leadership. And it was a real tearjerker. It was very sweet.
I mentioned I did a little digging into our own history. Back in the mid 80s, the city did, we primarily do one of 2 kinds of actions, either resolutions or ordinances. Ordinances are adoption of a law. We've had resolutions in the past where we commended, for example, in 1986, the boys track team and the girls cross country team both did very well at the state level. And so they had a resolution commending those teams for their continued good involvement in the community. Back in 2020, in June, following the beginning of the pandemic, Mayor Stemple had a proclamation that she prepared and read at the beginning of a meeting, calling out the senior class for their resilience in getting through that pandemic and graduating. And it was a kind of way of praising the community and the schools for all that they had been through in that extraordinary time. She began it by saying, "We don't usually do proclamations, but I thought this was a time when one was needed." So I think it was initiated by her. It did not come, to my knowledge, as a request from the community, but that's one way that it was done. Also, this year, in order to become a Tree City USA, one of the requirements is that we adopt a resolution proclaiming Arbor Day. And I think we did that in April of this year. It was not written as a proclamation per se, but that, that's just kind of a wording thing, what you call it. But that's some of our own recent history about those kinds of things. So are there other comments about this whole idea? You mentioned in Milwaukee that it seemed to be a proclamation made by the mayor and city council. A lot of cities that I've seen, as I've looked at this, it's something that's done by the mayor. It's not something that the council takes a vote on. Do you have comments or preferences one way or the other about that? Okay. All right.
Mayor Milch,
Yes.
down here. So I have a couple of suggestions. One, I'm so happy to see this land on an agenda. Very happy to hear that. I've also talked to some fellow city councilors in our neighboring communities who have spoken very highly of the proclamation process and the engagement it has with the community as well. And, really letting community members feel seen, heard, and celebrated. Of the verbiage that you've submitted, and I know this is all up for discussion, on number 4, I would really like to entertain having some sort of additional verbiage in here as to why a mayor can decline a proclamation. Not just the mayor can willy-nilly because they don't believe in whatever week, month.
I can
That
add
was-
to that, I guess.
I'm letting him catch up.
Okay, so you're saying you'd like to see, I think some of the policies that I've seen from other cities say just submitting a request doesn't necessarily mean that it will be approved. And they try to articulate some standards as to what it should be, not so much saying what it shouldn't be, but trying to see that it fits in certain criteria. And so you'd like to see a more detailed, if we adopt a policy, a more detailed explanation of the criteria so that people would understand why something might or might not be approved.
A more detailed explanation or set of rules why a mayor can decline, not just because the mayor doesn't personally believe in such proclamation or such,
Right, yeah,
organization.
it shouldn't just be a reflection of my views on things or my priorities.
Yes,
Okay.
or whoever, not just you, whoever sits in that seat.
Right. The office of the mayor, I think it's how it's, the mayor's office yes, it is not the individual, it's
Yeah.
the office. Councilor Alexander.
Well, I agree with her. That's a good point because, this looks like the mayor has a lot of authority, but we're not a mayor strong government here, that. And then, so to have just you get the power or the say, we're one body. I think we should all vote on it. If there's a proclamation, I think it should get voted on if there is a proclamation. I don't know about this process for the fact that if you go down here to content of proclamation number 2, proclamation should reflect inclusiveness, not exclusiveness. So if you include this group, you're excluding this group. So and that seems like it's contradictory to me. That's just me. And then it says, it can't be political or ideological, or it can't be an individual conviction because I want this and I'm this way, or I think this is why I want it. See, so those don't make a lot of sense to me, those things right there. But to go further, I just like to say, what we could do to find out how people stand, right? We got a ballot coming up. put any proclamations that's requested on the ballot, let someone check a box. See, so we don't speak for the whole city. You know what I mean? Because we have 4 new counselors coming in. So in just 4 or 5 months, you could do a new goal setting. And if they want to do that, then you guys agree to it and you do it. We're not Milwaukee. We're not Warrenton. We're Gladstone. We're unique. It's been 5 months short of 4 years. I've been sitting up here. I haven't seen one proclamation come across. And I think we're getting along good and the city's happy and we're doing a good job. So I'd hate to start throwing those out and doing, you know, and causing any kind of division. Second of all, since we have Chad on here, I'd like to ask Chad a question. Chad? If we were to do this or vote on a proclamation or adopt this or do anything with a proclamation, are there any legalities that can come up later on that, well, they did that proclamation for them, why aren't they doing this proclamation for me? And, you know, First Amendment things and stuff like that. You see what I'm saying? Have you ran into that or seen of that? Because I talked to some other people and they said their cities had a couple problems with that. So that was another question. I don't know if you can answer that for us.
Yeah, sure. Councilor Alexander, members of the City Council, Chad Jacobs from the City Attorney's Office. So a lot of this comes down to the way the policy is drafted and sort of goes to some of the conversation that you were just having about sort of setting standards about why a mayor could approve or reject a request for a proclamation. And so the basic issue is whether and to what extent the city is creating something called a public forum, as opposed to engaging in speech on its own behalf. And so when you create a public forum, you create an opportunity for members of the public outside of the city to engage in free speech activities. And when you do that, you sort of have to allow everyone the same opportunity to engage in speech. Now you can limit the topics that are allowed in a public forum, but you can't discriminate based on viewpoint. And so if you've got, you know, if you're going to allow a proclamation that says today is, you know, we're going to declare today Spinach Week in Gladstone, and you say that's a great thing, we're going to approve that, you know, spinach is great, made Popeye strong, that's a wonderful thing. Then, you know, Bluto comes in and says, well, I hate spinach because it makes Popeye strong, I want an anti-spinach proclamation. You'd have to allow both of those if you create that public forum. The way you get around that, however, is to not allow the creation of the public forum in the first place, is that you make very clear in your policies that the proclamations are city speech, and it's the city's point of view as demonstrated through its elected officials, and whether you want to delegate that authority to the mayor's office, or you want to retain that authority with the whole council as a body, that's obviously a policy call for you. But you just want to make very clear that the policy is drafted in a way that you're not creating that public forum, so you don't have to allow anyone to have an opportunity to say. Doesn't mean that you can't submit, you know, accept applications if someone wants a proclamation, but the final decision about whether you're going to do it, the final decision about what it's going to say, you know, all those things have to be retained with the city, and you're not providing an opportunity for someone to just engage in their own free speech activities. And so that's the way to avoid that, you know, and so to the extent that you want to move forward with something like this, I would certainly say that, you know, we'd want to get some feedback from you all as to some sort of foundational questions as far as who should approve it, you know, what kinds of proclamations you want to, you know, allow to be considered and things of that nature. And then let us sort of go back and redraft this policy to ensure that you're not creating that public forum and then it really is something that is just government speech.
Okay, thank you. Because I'd also like to just add, I'd like to touch on, I believe you're right about community engagement and that we need that and we should open up to everybody. So I just don't know if you had a change of mind or what, but I just want to bring up because I thought the same thing when I wanted to introduce prayer into and you wrote to try to use faith to drive people apart. It just plain sucks to be a citizen sitting at a council meeting and having a city council use your faith as a political wedge issue absolutely sucks. It's not kind, it's not moral, and it's not Christian. Well, so I just would ask you, I guess, do you think that all 12,000 people that live in the city of Gladstone, there'd be no division with if we did a Pride Month? I mean, do you not think there'd be people who go, well, you can't speak on me on my behalf of Pride Month, you know? I mean, I had 12 pastors that each had a month that were going to come here and start our city council with a prayer, which would have engaged 12 community churches. But, you know, you said, I don't know your intentions, which you were kind about it, but I mean, you said it just sucks. It's not right. And you said, all you will do if you try, it just plain sucks to be a citizen. You said, okay, a political wedge issue. It's not kind, it's not more. So that I would be, regardless of intent, introducing this practice into a government meeting would have the effect of excluding large segments of the community and making them feel unwelcome.
All right, I think we're getting a little off topic here.
No, she
you-
said
You may,
it
you
would be-
see some parallels to an issue that you brought up a while back to what we're talking about tonight. But let's focus on the issue of proclamations.
Mayor,
Counselor,
can I finish?
all
please?
right,
She's doing a parallel, saying it would be community engagement. Well, prayer would have been a community engagement also. That's all I'm pointing out. Is there, now it's okay to do that, or we want to do that, but we didn't want to do it 2 years ago? I don't understand how 2 years ago, I would be driving a community apart, and not just me, I'm talking about, and then like I said, since I've been on here going on 4 years, in 5 months, it'll be 4 years. Never had one proclamation brought up. The city seems to do fine. The council seems to do fine.
Councilor Huckabee, did you want to respond to the question that Councilor Alexander raised about the distinction between inclusiveness and exclusiveness? I thought I saw.
I'll turn off my mic. I just say end with, it's pretty, I don't know how there can be any explanation. You include this person, you're excluding this person. So yes, please explain.
I was going to answer that with another question, actually, about what's a tangible example you can give us to where if we proclaim this, we are excluding somebody?
Somebody that doesn't believe in, say, Pride Month.
Women's
They
Health
don't
Month?
like that. They don't like that. I mean,
They
that's
don't
what
like
she
Women's
brought up.
Health Month?
I didn't say that. Don't turn this on me. I'm saying.
I
there's
just
gonna
want
be-
an example.
Well, what's the
Who we're
example of the
excluding.
prayer?
I can give you.
Well, there's
an
a
example.
separation of
I
church
can-
and state.
I
in
can
this
give an
country, So there's that.
With government.
All right, all
Congress
right.
starts off with prayer.
Yes,
It
it
doesn't,
does.
if you look up separation of church and state, you're way off, and I've done it, I know. And
All right,
so-
that is not the issue tonight. Let me just say,
That's the
uh,
answer. You
one of
gotta have
our-
a discussion. You don't want us to have a discussion, Mayor? don't
I
get it.
want us, I want a discussion to be on topic. And the topic is proclamations. It's not prayer. Yeah, when I was, a former mayor used to open the meetings, she must have had a calendar for these things because she often had, today is such and such day. It's National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day. And they were always kind of amusing and interesting and started off the meetings on a positive note. I sometimes resented if it was National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day and she didn't have cookies to share with everybody in the room. So I started looking up, how do I find it with those? And I went and I got to Google and I put in the word national and it came up Left-Handers Day without me even typing it in, because today, August 13th, is National Left-Handers Day. And it says, August 13th is a chance to tell your family and friends how proud you are of being left-handed and also raise awareness of the everyday issues that lefties face as we live in a world designed for right-handers. And I thought, to me, that's kind of a non-controversial way of getting at the distinction between inclusiveness and exclusiveness. That sometimes whether people feel excluded is because we live in a world that is designed for right-handed people, but the small minority that are left-handed sometimes need to find a way to accommodate or to be accommodated or to, well, I'm not going to try to express it the right way, I guess, but so when you talk about inclusiveness versus exclusiveness, that's what occurred to me. It's that we want to err on the side of including people who sometimes have been excluded in the past, or and those are often the things when we talk about national holidays, Black History Month, Indigenous Peoples Month in October, where we recognize that we've expanded opportunities and inclusion of people when we started out as being a very narrowly focused community. So that's what I have to say about that particular one. I don't know that the wording on this is what I would choose. Because it is, as you say, it's very hard to define. What is inclusive versus what is exclusive will depend on your point of view as to whether you feel you are part of an included group or an excluded group. You know, that's what they have in here. Chad, I want to say thank you. That was helpful information, helpful to put it in the context of the distinction between city speech, a mayor or a council agreeing to profess something, to recognize someone or some event, and then creating public forum. I think we have gotten in trouble in the past in this council with, that our meetings, we've had business from the audience and allowed a lot of public discussion of things that kind of got us off what we're here about doing. So, all right, let me get some other input. I want to be sure everybody gets a chance to weigh in, and I'm getting, this is helpful. I'm getting kind of some guidance of where we might want to go with this and what should or shouldn't be a part. And I'm glad that we had something specific for you to react to, because it helps me to see where you're coming from on this issue. Other comments or questions? Councilor Garlington, you have your light on?
I do. So one of the things that I wanted to bring up is that I'm not in favor of having it just be the mayor. And I'm not speaking about you or anyone else.
The office of the mayor.
The office of the mayor. I think that if a proclamation was brought forth, it would have to have like, so when we bring up something as a group, someone here brings something up, it takes 3 people or 3 or 4 people to get it on the agenda. I think that a proclamation should be the same thing. There should be support behind a proclamation, and that part of that process would be that. That being said, one of the overall things weighing heavy on my mind in the last year in the city of Gladstone is the fact that our staff is stretched so thin. They have job after job. I don't think you need to do that.
Smile.
It's anyway, our staff is stretched incredibly thin. We've been told over and over again that they don't have the time or the resources to take on more projects. There are also items in our agenda tonight, and I can't remember which area that from the work that our staff has done. And in reading through those, there was a couple of items that weren't getting done because we didn't have staff time for it. So for us to add an item to the staff agenda mid-year, to me, is not taking into consideration their time and their efforts. And I'm not saying not to talk about it in a goal-setting session and making it part of where we go forward and how we choose to use our staff time. But to add it to staff time mid-year is not a responsible use of our staff's time, in
All
my
right.
opinion.
And I agree with you that if we come up with something new that wasn't part of our council goals, it's not something we have planned for staff time to do. Although I do see a contradiction if we expect it to be something that's acted on by the council as a whole, then that would involve staff time in preparing the proclamation that we have to react to. Whereas if the mayor's office uses its discretion in deciding which requests of proclamations it would read at a meeting, then that could be done without using any staff time. So I see those two issues a little bit in conflict with one another, but I hear both your points and understand where you're coming from.
So you would give a proclamation to a person and not a certificate of some sort?
Well, it would require, it could be done just verbally, but if it did involve printing something, putting a sticker on it, putting the city's logo, there would be some minimal amount of staff time involved in doing that. So yes, you're right. And that, which is a lot of times what sometimes a proclamation, somebody wants something to hang on a wall, or they want an opportunity to come to a meeting and be recognized. I get a number of these, not a huge number. I get a few by email. They are usually already drafted and printed. Here's the proclamation for you. We've done all the work for you. All we want you to do is say you agree with it. And I could tell by some of them, the one that circulated among the mayors of the state, sometimes you get involved in global level political issues. There is great controversy, and you are better off saying, nope. It's a lot easier to say, we don't do proclamations, so we're not going to take a stand on Israel, Palestine, genocide, all these things that right now it's an issue where it's hard to say anything without somebody finding fault with what you say. And if you can avoid those issues, you're good. Now, we also get requests from groups representing various diseases, conditions. Councilor Cook, Mental Health Month, for example. There are various kinds of breast cancer awareness, and epilepsy awareness. Some of these proclamations are done by supportive groups as a way of encouraging public awareness of them. They may not be specific to Gladstone, which is why I could say, well, if the epilepsy foundations of one kind or another are doing a good job of informing the community about the issues of epilepsy, maybe it's not so important for us as a city to do that. But there may be people in this city for whom that's a very personal, important issue, and they want to bring it up and do that. And maybe they need to have that opportunity to give us. But then, it's like you say, if you do it for one, do you do it for all? And when does it get overdone? So that's part of it. Councilor Cook, go ahead.
Oh, just before we get too far away from the concern about staff time, rather than speculating about staff time, I'm wondering if we can ask Administrator Betts. Administrator Betts, you've looked through this. Does it scare you with the thinking of the staff time involved, or what do you anticipate the staff time being involved in opening up?
It really depends on if a policy gets adopted. And so really what I'm listening for tonight is there a consensus? And I don't think everybody's had an opportunity to speak yet. Is there a consensus that the council wants to implement an official proclamation process? If there is, the next step is that Chad and I work together on developing what that policy is. There would still need to be a couple of foundational questions that he would need you to answer for that. And it really is going to depend on what that policy looks like. So I don't know if I can truly answer that yet, but developing a policy would require the city attorney and my time to do that. But after that point, I don't know how much time is until we know what that policy is going to look like.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? So when you do that, is it easier? Like when we had our new council, we did goal setting in 2 days. Is it easier when you wait for the 4 new counselors that you have that time and you see the issues and then you work on it than do like at it right now?
Well, if you think about the conversation that you all are having right now, there's division on the council. And you have a lot to still talk through. Is that something that you want to do now, or is it worth having a bigger conversation at a later date? That is something for all of you to decide on that. And like I said, I'm still gathering thoughts here and notes. I want to listen to what everybody has to say before Chad and I come back. And if we feel like we have a consensus, then we can ask a couple of fundamental questions.
And that's helpful. And Chad's comment earlier was helpful. I think a couple of the issues that I have on this are, if we have a procedure by which people can request that we do a proclamation, it puts either the office of the mayor or the city council, depending on what procedure we follow, in the position of accepting or rejecting. And I have some difficulty with that. Just for the purpose of time, of not being, not having our meetings overwhelmed by this, we will have to say, we would not be able to accept every single request that comes. And any kind of, this one, for example, says, what's the one? There was a rule on here about not doing it for people. Oh, to honor individuals or employees. Yeah, my first year as mayor, I was invited to go over to Somerset to help celebrate the 100th birthday of an individual. Some cities will do a proclamation proclaiming, Natalie Smith, several years from now, is celebrate her 100th birthday. And that would, that's a pretty much non-controversial kind of a proclamation. But, maybe the reason this city didn't want to do it is because you don't want to start lifting up every single accomplishment, so-and-so graduated at the top of their class, or, promoted in the military, whatever. There are a lot of wonderful life achievements, but you got to put a limit on it.
I was just gonna say, because the whole thing is, and that's why I say almost better to do no proclamations like we have for this first year and a half, and we've had no problems or issues. And then, okay, Pride Month, we know it's Pride Month. We know it's Juneteenth. We know it's Veterans Day. We know because the TV, it's on your calendar. We know these things. So I don't know the purpose of the city council sitting up here and proclaiming it.
Well,
I don't get it.
let me try to say something then about this. Part of what Councilor Cook pointed out was this sense of involving the community in a very positive way in the context of doing a proclamation. And a couple of years ago, when you raised the issue of the council of maybe having prayer to open a meeting, it was because there was an issue of division and dysfunction on the council, and you were looking for a solution to that. And I think what we need to focus on is, let's find a way to address the bigger issue. The bigger issue is involving people in our community in the work of our council and feeling a connection to them. Doing a proclamation might be a way of helping to do that. Inviting the pastors of their churches in to pray before the meeting, from some people's perspective, might be a way to do that too. But I think maybe the focus should be on that need to connect the community with the work of the council in a positive way. We've done it in the past through resolutions not called proclamations. We've done it occasionally, very occasionally, in terms of what I could find, with something that where we use the term proclamation. But I don't think I'm seeing a lot of consensus here tonight on a specific way of doing this. But I did hear some positive expressions about ways of helping the community feel connected and supported by the work of the council. Could we continue to think about ways that we could do that? As you pointed out, that was one of our goals. This was a possible way of addressing that goal, one which I'm not finding a lot of consensus for. But I think if we use the discussion tonight to get further into this, maybe we'll find other positive ways of addressing that goal that we can get behind.
I'm totally open to other ways of doing it. I do think we haven't heard from 3 counselors on their opinion, so I don't think we quite have the ability to make a consensus yet.
All right, good.
Agreed.
And let me ask that then. Councilor Roberts, I'll start with you. Do you have anything to add to this, or any thoughts about what's been said so far?
I do have thoughts. It was interesting to see already the disagreement amongst the council in going into this process of kind of understanding what proclamations look like. Initially, when it was proposed, I understood, yep, the city goes out there and says, today is so-and-so day, and this is why. I think that's awesome. But then I got further into my research, and what I started to see was, I looked for, because I saw why it was good. So I started to find what was wrong with it. Kind of went at it from the devil's advocate point of view. And what I started to see was these councils can't agree. is there are a lot of councils out there that internally they can't agree, and then the city can't agree. And so I don't want to come up here and get in a fight every night about what we should or shouldn't be saying. I mean, thank you both for coming so much. I would love to see a room full of people, but it's kind of nice when it's kind of quiet. The city has been functioning at an incredibly high level recently in the last couple of years. Administrator Betts has done a fantastic job. We continue to grow. We continue to improve. We don't have people coming to our meetings in a tizzy, upset about something. I'm not interested in bringing that back to our city. I would love to see how else we can explore this, because community engagement has continued to be a goal of ours. We've talked about it a lot. We've gone out in the community. We have what we do already, but I'd love to see how we can grow that. I'll start with that.
All right.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your opening statement that you saw what was good and then thought to explore it fully, you need to look at the downside too, because it lets me know you're making a well-informed decision and you're considering both parts of it. It occurs to me that the nights where we have had a big crowd here is when we have sworn in new members of our police force and they bring their families. And that is a real feeling of connection. And, you know, maybe more celebrations of one kind or another similar to that would be a good thing to do.
I need to say one more thing real quick about, like, because we do community reach. I mean, we never had, I think, was this the first or the second year? Because you said the Juneteenth picnic came out good, right?
It's the
Yeah.
first year.
First year. So see, that was our
Wasn't a
goal
city
setting.
event, though.
Oh, it wasn't? Oh, I thought we had money or I
That's not
thought,
considered a city event.
oh, okay. So that, you know,
That
open
means
and
ours.
engaged.
City event means our staff participates in planning and reaches out to all the vendors and such. Sponsorship program is different.
All right. Counselor Blau, do you want to weigh in on this discussion?
Yeah, actually. So when I read through this, my concern was the emphasis on the mayor's office, and not you particularly, but the mayor's office having the ability to declare these without a consensus from the council. You know, we are not a mayor-driven city. And so to me, that was like my first, oh, I don't know if I feel like this. Given how divisive this subject is, I feel like we can accomplish some of the same things with resolutions, which allow everybody to have a say, you know, that's on the council. And, you know, we also have the ability for people to come in and make public comments. And that could be a time, you know, for whoever would like to come in and do that. And doesn't require us to agree, disagree, do anything other than sit here and, you know, take that in. And I feel like between the two of those, I feel like that covers most of what we would like to see done with a proclamation.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else want to add any more?
I'll compound on what
Okay.
Councillor Blau just said there. I don't think I've been shy, kind of as I sat up here for the last year and a half, of almost any time there's language of either whether it be the mayor's office or the decision of the mayor. I've always stricken that language. You'll go back and find almost 2 years worth of packets where I've stricken that out and written something else in, and we've talked about it up here. And so I know the conversation is whether or not we even want to move forward with this, but I just like to say I agree with that point. I will never be in favor of a unilateral decision. I don't think that, I mean, there are 7 of us. That's more than most cities around us have. That means we have a lot of voices representing a much smaller city than a smaller council to a bigger city. So I think that we should make all those voices heard. You know, there are a lot of different opinions up here, and I think that's what makes a city strong. That's why we can have these sorts of discussions. It's just my concern as we go into this process is, from the research I've seen, the people I've talked to, this is a very strife creating topic. We don't have that in our council right now. I don't want to bring that in.
Well, as I shared from the beginning, the reason this circulated among mayors was because it did have the potential to cause that kind of strife. not so much originating with the council itself, but from the outside groups that submitted requests for proclamations. And sometimes if you went at it without looking too critically at what you were receiving, you might approve something and then realize later you've offended half your community by approving it. One of the, well, I won't even go into the details because just talking about it would probably offend part of the community. I've appreciated this discussion. I want us to think about it more. I think, Councilor Alexander, through your question that you asked Administrator Betts, maybe I'm guessing that you think that as a council in a goal setting session, that might be a more appropriate way to decide how we accomplish what we hope to.
Yeah, because we
Yeah.
did some good things, I think, already this year. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
And as I said, historically, back in, I can't remember what year it was, 2021, I think, or 2022, we did adopt a resolution about Juneteenth, making, it was already made statewide a holiday, but locally we recognized it in our city. There wasn't a proclamation. It had the support of the city council, but at times during that time period when we had a lot of conflict among the council, there were other things brought forward that didn't get approval. And that was not conducive to the kind of unity and, being on the same page that you really want. So, and I hear that, I hear Councilor Roberts saying we want to kind of continue to be not uncontroversial, but respectful of one another, not having conflict divide us. And if that means that we have small crowds because it's not as exciting to watch a meeting anymore, then yeah, a lot of us are willing to accept that. Councilor Huckabee.
If that resolution exists, will you send it to me? Because I've searched and I cannot find it.
Which resolution is that, on Juneteenth?
Yeah, on 2021.
Okay, I think it's number 1094. I can't remember for sure. You're welcome.
Just to close this out. Totally hear that there's no consensus on this, and that's okay. I think, I think by saying that we can't engage in proclamations because we don't think we're capable of having a civilized conversation about something is really disappointing. And I think it speaks to the fact that we still have some healing to do. Nobody wants a divisive city council meeting. I think the fact that, Councilor Alexander, you brought up pride as a potentially divisive proclamation. All pride is acknowledging that queer people exist in our community and that they have value. And if someone thinks that queer people should not be in this community, I think that's a deeply minority opinion that does not reflect the values of Gladstone. And I think that's worth engaging with or disregarding. But I think that it's by saying, gosh, people would be really upset if we acknowledged that queer people were here. And that's why we're not going to have proclamations for everybody else, for veterans, for police officers, for people who have Parkinson's, for whatever the heck else. We're so afraid of acknowledging queer people that we're just not going to do any of it. I think that's really disappointing. And I don't think that reflects the values of Gladstone.
okay, and I didn't say that. I didn't say about queer people
Can
reflecting
you
that.
explain what you did mean? What do you
Yeah,
mean by
I
not
meant
believing in
exactly what
pride?
you just said.
Yeah.
Replace pride with prayer. So you're saying what you said. I think that's really disappointing. And this is, there's 12 churches in a 2.5 square mile. So
Yeah.
you said that would exclude people. So you said that. Yeah.
I
would
said that
exclude.
having prayer in a city council meeting, I
Right.
do think would be divisive and would
Okay,
exclude
and all I
people.
said is there's certain subjects and topics that
Yeah.
come up and you said, and I know people in Milwaukee, I know business owners in Milwaukee,
Yeah.
and they said, well, I didn't agree with that.
I'm
I
a
said,
business owner. in
I know,
Milwaukee,
I
so,
understand that.
yeah.
I know, and I know more down the street. And
Yeah.
they said, oh, I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of that. How come I wasn't,
So I think the question I would ask you, Councilor Alexander, is in all of our packets, we see examples of bias incidents. Can you tell me about a time a Christian's property was damaged? Can you tell me about a time someone was beat up on Portland Avenue because they were a Christian?
Oh, it happens all the time. Not just in Gladstone, happens
It
all
happens
over,
all the time.
all over the world.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah. So
So I think we're not going to reach a suitable conclusion here today. And I just think that's sad.
and
and-
I've talked to a lot of people. I did take notes when I talked to people.
Yeah.
So it's not, this isn't my opinion or me. It's me speaking as an elected official for other people in the community.
Okay. I think the final thing I'll leave you with is, and again, I mentioned this at a prior council meeting, but it really troubles me. And so I want to mention it again. Picking up my kid at school, there's another parent at pickup, told me that she's moving. And I said, gosh, I'm so sorry you're moving, but like, do you get to stay in, like, where are you going to go? Like, it was so great having you in the community. And, are you going to stay in Gladstone, or are your kids going to keep going to the school? And they said, it's been really nice. Like, we live a block away from the school. It's been really nice to just be able to walk over and drop my kid off. But no, I think we're going to leave. There's a lot of stuff about Gladstone we didn't know when we moved here. They're a mixed race family and they don't feel safe. So I think if we're, these are hard conversations. They are.
Okay.
But I think if you are so afraid of them that you can't engage, nothing's ever going to move forward.
Well, are you pointing that at me? I'm asking because I'm not afraid. I'm having the conversation.
Yeah. So like,
I'm not afraid. I'm
so
having it.
let's have a plan for proclamations and
All right, and that's what I was saying. So let's do
Yeah.
it, but let's, why not wait a few months when they got 4 new counselors? Why are we
I
gonna
think-
set up something for 4 new counselors to come on and go, well, we have to do this because the last council just a few months ago set it up. That's all I'm saying is why not we had goal setting. You weren't involved in it, but we had goal setting
Yeah.
and we sat here for 2 days and decided what we wanted our goals to be.
Yeah. And one of them was community engagement.
And we have been
which
doing,
this would
we have
serve.
been, and we have been
Yeah.
community engagement.
Yeah. And this would serve that goal.
May I-
Fair would too.
Councillor Roberts.
May I ask one clarifying point, Councilor Cook? Not about the substance of what you said, just a remark. You mentioned that you were disappointed or disheartened, I can't remember for certain, that the city council is not capable of having a civil discussion. Is that what you meant? Just to be very clear.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think if we're saying that we can't have proclamation requests because we think that the issue of the example that Councillor Alexander said when he said a proposal that I would not be willing to support, he
Mhm.
said pride is an example of something that I would not be willing to support. So if we're saying because Councillor Alexander doesn't want to support pride, we want to jettison the entire process of proclamations, I think that.
Okay, I want that
that's-
stricken because that did not come, play it back. And can you do that, Tammy? Those words did not come out of my mouth that Councilor Alexander does not support pride.
You said,
No, I said,
yeah, I don't believe in that.
no, I did not. I do. Do you know who I went out with for 2 years? You know.
I think we should do a point of
All right.
We're not
order.
going to mention
We're
that
not
here.
gonna-
It's
I-
irrelevant.
Yeah.
I didn't say it because I don't feel that way. So don't put that on there.
All right, I think Councillor Cook, you've raised a good issue. It goes back to something I said earlier. If there's a problem with people in this community not feeling safe, let's address that problem. A proclamation might be a solution, one solution to that problem. But let's keep it before us as something. That bias crime does happen in this community, we know. And the more people are aware of it, the less many people feel safe. So let's address that. And let's continue to address that. And I think I may have misunderstood. I didn't mean to say that we are incapable as a council of addressing these. I would hope that whoever's in the mayor's office, if it were a mayor-only decision, could use good discretion in making a decision about something like that. But I think, but I understand too, the sentiments of those who feel this is not a power given to the mayor by our charter. And so do we pick and choose a particular authority that the mayor has?
And there's other ways of doing that too. I think
Yeah.
it would be quite easy to build in a mechanism where council can give feedback on a potential proclamation. But I think what we've determined here is that we are much too divided at this point to be able to do this.
Okay,
And so I thought we were past that. I thought we were in a better place. I thought we had healed. And that is not the case. And so I think this is no longer a productive discussion, and I'm happy to drop this.
all right.
I would like to make one last comment that I'm simply asking that we put it on a goal setting session in January, given staff time and legal costs. I don't have a problem. I don't have any issue with having proclamations made by the council and or a vote of the council or council backing in some way. I would like to do it in January, and I would love to see the new council do it as a goal setting, as part of their goal setting session, and really have a robust conversation about what exactly that's going to look like. But to throw a new item into our staff mid-year, I've never, ever, ever been a proponent of doing that.
All right. And I think that was one of the things that Administrator Best requested, guidance on whether to, that when we get to our goal setting session in January, this is something we can consider rather than try to come up with a policy now. So Chad, thank you for your input. Administrator Betts, thank you for including this on the agenda. And to everyone, thanks for being honest and sharing your views. Councilor Huckabee, I'll make a correction. It was a resolution number 1194, not 1094, that was a resolution for the recognition of Juneteenth as an annual legal holiday within the city of Gladstone.
And Mayor Milch, I wanted to make one clarification on a statement you made at the beginning in regards to a proclamation the city did during COVID for the high school graduating class. That was a request that came from the school district.
It was, okay.
Yes, because it was an anomaly for that year. And we actually read all of the graduating students' names. The city council elected officials split that up amongst them. But I did want to share that request came from the superintendent.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. It wasn't clear in the minutes that I read, and I hadn't even been aware that it had been done. So thanks.
And I need to clarify because I did not say that. I said it would be divisive. She said right here, if you want a copy of this.
I think-
Well, I'm just saying, she said she didn't want prayer. I did not say I didn't want Pride Month. So let's get it straight.
All right. That concludes our agenda. I understand. Do we have any business from the audience tonight?
We have not received any requests.
Okay. Then we move to business from the council. I will start with Councilor Huckabee and move down toward Councilor Garlington.
This has been so incredibly disheartening. I have nothing to say tonight.
I have nothing either.
I would like to see this discussion happen further. I think January is a good time to have that. And that's all I have.
It was in our consent agenda that Andrew Rathbun has been appointed to traffic safety. I want to appreciate Andrew, who has a pretty radical agenda. Radical resume, a very excellent resume, very well prepared person. I think will provide a lot of value to the traffic safety committee. So thank you to Andrew Rathbun.
I wanted to make sure I didn't leave that conversation without closure. And I won't get into the weeds about it, but I think that the conversation has a lot of value. And this time, maybe we can just walk away, do a little more research, get more comfortable with it. And I agree that this is a discussion we should have in January. So I'll leave it at that. The community festival was fantastic. It was great seeing so many people. I love being out in the parade. Got to sit right down on Portland Avenue with my family. I saw Mindy running down Portland Avenue, trying to find somewhere to sit. And I said, Mindy, you sit right here. She sat with us. The mayor was throwing out candy and his bag ran out right in front of us. So we
Right at the beginning.
pretty much, he had a lot of candy there, but halfway. So I had a great time at the community festival. Beyond that, I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you for sharing your chair. Oh, and I did have a chair, didn't I?
You
So
did.
it was a great time. And everybody that was in the parade, everyone that worked on the parade, the Rotary did a fabulous job. The bouncy house was hot, but we did it. It was a great event. There were so many people that stayed after the parade that made everything happening within the park a great time. I think everything that they strived for, they accomplished and more. My hats off to the Rotary. They did a fabulous job. Thank you to the city for supporting all of the things that they did. I know that that takes a lot of time, even from our end, between the police, our staff, the fire department, everything, all those little things that have to be covered. It all takes time, and I appreciate all the time that everybody gave. There is, and Andrew, I thought that was really interesting too, because I read his a little bit of a bio, and when he said that he was working through his schooling, I thought, well, this just fits that right away. I love that you're doing that. So my hat's off to him for looking outside the box on that one. There is an open house community event on Thursday, the 15th. Is it 6 or 6:30, Administrator Beth?
It is 6 to 7:30.
6 to 7:30 for the Urban Renewal Project. Come out and look and see what's happening.
It is for the Gladstone Town Center
Center,
project,
I'm
not
sorry.
urban renewal.
Town Center Project. Okay. It is on my calendar. So October 12th, although we have not gotten the permission from the city yet, I'm going to say it anyway. We would like to have, the Gladstone Nature Park would like to have a plant sharing event, which means you cut out of your yard, you bring it to the park, you share your starts, and everything is free. I will put more in the newsletter once I have the permission from the city. And I hope that we can get a lot of people to come and join in that. We have a lot of people that share in their plant knowledge around the Pacific Northwest, and a lot of those people will be there. So I think that'll be fun. Knowing that we do not have a meeting at the end of August, I would also like to extend the best of wishes to our school district for a really great 25-26 school year. I hope that every child going back to school learns something, makes a friend, and reads a really good book. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, all of you. Today, our state representative and former city councilor, Anessa Hartman, was here in town with other state legislators and their staff and representatives of the Clackamas Workforce Partnership. They were on a little tour locally in Clackamas County to look at the issue of workforce development and in its broader scope. And one of the themes of the discussion, some of us met for lunch and talked a little bit, was that sometimes as a state, we tend to silo these issues separately, and the groups that really need each other don't always talk to each other. So workforce development is about training, it's about education, it's about partnership with business, it's about childcare, it's about affordable housing in the community where you want to work, it's about transportation to get to work. And I appreciate that the leaders, the volunteer leaders and legislators who work on these issues are beginning to see and recognize and emphasize the importance of not being siloed and separated, but being interconnected and recognizing the interplay that these issues have. So I feel well represented by Representative Hartman, and was glad to be able to be a part of that discussion. Gabby was there with me. Yes, tomorrow, let's see. Well, no, I won't mention that. So later this month, August 24th, the High Rocks restaurant is hosting something called Rib Fest. which will be a cooking contest for ribs. It's also a fundraiser for the Gladstone High School football program. It's Saturday, the 24th, beginning at 6 p.m. We had a work session on our general calendar for later this month, but we are not having a work session on August 27th. So we have the rest of the month off as far as council work. I take responsibility tonight for not coming to a consensus, for people leaving with frustration from whatever reasons.
It's not your responsibility.
Thank you. But I'm glad we had the discussion. Sometimes it's productive to open things up and see where we are and see where we can improve. And there's always room for improvement. I'll just put it like that. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved by Counselor Cook, seconded by Counselor Garlington. Tammy, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Alexander,
Yes.
Counselor Huckabee,
Yes.
Counselor Garlington,
Yes.
Counselor Roberts,
Yes.
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor Blau,
Yes.
Mayor Milch.
Yes, we are adjourned at 7:51 p.m.